Studying an insect with amazing powers. It's a caterpillar, but unlike most, you've got to be quick to keep up with it. This slowed-down video shows a mother-of-pearl moth caterpillar. Cambridge University scientist Dr. John Brackenbury has discovered it can roll at over half a metre a second. That's the equivalent of a Ferrari car doing 150 miles per hour. Dr. Brackenbury believes that the caterpillars develop their amazing acrobatic abilities because they have no other defences, such as camouflage or poisonous spines. Being able to move this fast enables it to avoid birds and other predators. Fascinating stuff. Let's have a look at the travel news, and we start with the A1 in...
Animals may have to be re-examined following the discovery of fossils thought to be 600 million years old. The tiny pellets of fossilised excrement were found embedded in an ancient rock in Scotland, and scientists say they may prove complex life existed on Earth millions of years earlier than had been believed.
You wouldn't immediately associate the beautiful Hebridean island of Islay with fossilised faeces, but this is where they were discovered. The rocks they were found in are about 600 million years old. That means the animal which deposited them must have existed 600 million years ago. Up till now, the oldest animal fossils date from about 540 million years ago. The pellets are in a tiny row about an inch long. Scientists who've spent years studying fossilised excrement are in no doubt that is what these are. One of the scientists who made the discovery says it will change people's views on early evolution.
It pushes our knowledge of early animal life back by some nearly 50 million years. What that does is it opens the thinking of myself and colleagues all around the world to an extra period of time in which we have no record of evolutionary life.
Scientists have always been puzzled over how the whole range of animals in the fossil record seem to have appeared over a relatively short period of about 20 million years. Now it's clear complex animals existed long before. The animal which made the pellets was probably a worm-like creature about half an inch long. Like all important sites, the Scottish site will need saving from fossil hunters.
It's got to be protected and looked after and valued as part of our heritage. I mean, it is wonderful that this happened in Britain.
The discovery of the fossilised pellets will open up a whole new area of study. James Wilkinson, BBC News.
And now back to our main story. The first visit to Downing Street by...
Graves. That capitalism has taken root here is no longer in doubt, and some people are making a great deal of money. But some of the problems may be getting worse. Doug Steele, the Hungry Duck's owner, is astonishingly open about the level of corruption, about how much he has to pay to stay in business and to whom.
We've first, the mafia of every civic official, every organization, whether it's police, fire department, health inspectors, you've got tax inspectors, and there's 5 or 6 levels of them. Then there's your landlord. You have to give them bribes or they're going to basically break your lease and so on and so forth. It's anything that's official back home, you have to pay here.
When he opened his first bar, Mr. Steele paid off a street mafia group, but they simply took it over. The Hungry Duck is down an alley close to the headquarters of the security service, the FSB, formerly the KGB. He now pays officers there instead, which appears to provide better protection. In total, corruption of one kind or another costs him $150,000 a year. To deal with this, many foreign firms employ a security company like the one run by Ted Shah. He says Moscow can, in every sense, be a dangerous place to do business.
You've got to know who you're doing business with. Have your partners verified, establish their identities, and just verify that they're actually the people who they say they are.
Moscow is going through an incredibly rapid process of westernization, and the signs are everywhere. On the outskirts, they've even imported an American suburb, American homes designed and built by Americans, largely for Americans and other foreigners. At £7,000 a month, few Russians can afford to live here. But in a world where money can be moved swiftly out of a country, is this a first world economy in the making or simply robber capitalism? Certainly outside Moscow, the picture is often bleak. This glass factory was privatized, but has changed hands so many times the workers are no longer sure who owns it. They are paid in the glass they make and spend their weekends desperately trying to sell it to passing train passengers.
I don't remember the last time I was paid in money. This is what I get paid in.
This is only 200 miles from the bright lights of Moscow's city centre, but it is a completely different world. There is money in Moscow now, albeit in few hands, but the real question is whether any of that wealth will trickle out to the rest of Russia. The British ambassador Andrew Wood says that process has begun. He believes the economy will gradually stabilise.
Our major companies would not be investing as heavily as they are here and at an increasing rate if they didn't calculate, and I think rightly, that in a time span of 5 years plus, there will have been a further degree of stabilisation, that growth will have become built into the system.
Doug Steele is less optimistic. He points to the endemic corruption and massive gap between rich and poor and says the situation shows no sign of stabilising. Today he's making money, but he says he has no idea what the future holds. Tom Bradby, News at 10, Moscow.
Here, the poor relations of football, the 72 football, the astronauts' own reminiscences.
No one knew it at the time, but it was to be the last mission to the moon. Exactly 25 years ago, 2 astronauts from Apollo 17 started a 3-day stay on the moon's surface. The Apollo program was scrapped soon afterwards. Man has still not been back. For 3 days in 1972, the moon was their home.
I was strolling on the moon one day in a merry, merry month of December. Now, May.
I best describe having been there as being in a place where reality is almost like a dream. Even today, the reality of having called the moon my home sometimes is almost like a dream.
They believed it was just the prelude to other, longer stays on the moon, maybe even on other planets.
My golly, this time goes fast.
But budget cuts at the space agency NASA meant this was to be the last Apollo mission. The value of putting men on the moon at all was questioned, and there are still no plans to go back. For the quarter century since this last departure, the lunar surface has been left undisturbed and is likely to remain so. The target now is not a return to the moon, but the planet Mars. James Mates, News at 10 in the United States.
And that's News at 10 tonight. We'll see you again tomorrow. From all of us here, good night.
Has heard how a Cambridge University undergraduate threw himself off a building in a panic over an unfinished essay. 18-year-old Jack Davis died just 2 weeks into the academic year. John Angier reports.
Jack Davis was just starting his time at Cambridge. A talented languages student, he was well liked by fellow undergraduates. His body was found at the foot of an accommodation block. After a night out with friends, he'd gone back to try to finish an essay. The inquest heard that Jack had already missed 2 other deadlines and was growing increasingly anxious about his essay. The Cambridge coroner said he believed anxiety had turned to panic and Jack had climbed onto the roof and over the parapet. College authorities said it was a tragedy without warning in an environment which identifies problems quickly.
The whole point of the Cambridge collegiate system is to produce a more personal environment where if a student is under pressure, it becomes evident very early on to his teachers. And the other point is that the whole system is so personal that it tends to prevent feelings of alienation and pressure building up in students.
The coroner said Jack Davis was responsible for his own death, but there wasn't enough evidence for a verdict of suicide. He recorded an open verdict. John Angier, Anglia News, Cambridge.